Hello everyone, this is Forester Lizelle Cortejos. Today I will be discussing climate change impacts on tropical forests, identifying risk for tropical Asia. So for an introduction, tropical forests are some of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth. So we mentioned before in our previous discussions that tropical forests are one of the most iconic and one of the most largest biomes on Earth. But right now, they are under unprecedented threat from deforestation and degradation and accelerating climate change. The IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, projected or estimated that tropical forest ecosystems are likely to be significantly impacted by climate change. The tropical domain has experienced the greatest total forest loss in the last decade, from 2000 to 2012, due to clearing, no, which is a human activity. So, tropical Asia encompasses several biodiversity hotspots and species rich ecoregions. So, I mentioned also in our previous discussions that in tropical Asia or in the tropical forest here in Asia, the most dominant tree species or tree family is the Dipterocarpaceae family. So it comprises 470 species and 13 genera in South and Southeast Asia, so including the Philippines. The pterocarps are highly variable in terms of their flowering and fruiting phenology, their ecological characteristics, and geographical ranges, as they occur in evergreen, semi-evergreen, and deciduous forest. So, changes in climate and climate extremes are likely to impact the diverse forests of tropical Asia, and it has been predicted that Asia could lose three-quarters of its original forest and half of its biodiversity by 2100. So, it is a very sad prediction that might happen if we don't take an action now. In tropical Asia, most of the forests are degraded and fragmented because of widespread conversion of forest for agriculture. So one of the factor why we have a degraded forest is because of widespread conversion of forest for other purposes. So for agriculture, for developmental purposes, now for subdivisions, for buildings, for planta. So there are many purposes na gina-convert ang forest today. So as a result of that, the vulnerability of tropical Asian forests to climate change is enhanced, and understanding its impacts on tropical Asian forests is a priority for their conservation. So because degraded na nga tong forest, the vulnerability of that to the effects of climate change is enhanced. No, kay tungod kay degraded naman siya, dili na kaayo siya makaprotect sa iyahang kaugalingon to the effects of climate change. So the impacts of climate change on tropical forest fell mainly into one of the three broad categories, which we will discuss. So one is the changes in the plant species distribution, two is the changes in the forest stand dynamics, including the changes in the forest cover, structure, and composition, and third is the changes in tree phenology. So first, changes in species distribution. Two recent studies in India found out that annual temperature, annual precipitation, and precipitation of the wettest month were key drivers of shifts in the distribution of Myristica dactyloides. In another study, soil moisture was found to be the key factor influencing shifts in the distribution of Shorea robusta. So changes in temperature, precipitation and cloudiness, carbon balance, wildlife, and anthropogenic disturbances were identified as the key determining factors of tree distributions in the African tropical highlands. So this is just an example, African tropical highlands. But these issues is also being experienced by tropical forests all over the world. So, kita po diri sa Southeast Asia, naka-experience po ani nga mga issues like the changes in temperature, precipitation and cloudiness, carbon balance, wildfire, and anthropogenic disturbances, nakaapekto po siya sa plants or sa wildlife or sa biodiversity nga naa diri sa Southeast Asia nga tropical forest. Okay, ikaduha is the changes in forest structure and composition. So, forest structure is defined as the horizontal and vertical distribution of layers in a forest, including the trees, shrubs, and ground cover. So, ang forest structure daw is the horizontal or ang kalapad o ang vertical or ang kataas sa forest trees species in a specific area. So how can climate change affect forest structure and composition? So climate extremes such as drought and fire can increase tree mortality rates, and high rainfall can drive mortality in the pterocarp trees and influence the dynamics of tropical forests. So when you say mortality, this means death, okay? So climate extremes daw such as drought and fire and storm can increase death of trees or rates of death of trees. So, which means nga pag mo undergo og climate extremes ang forest, there is a big possibility nga daghan og mga matay nga mga trees. So land use conversion and population pressure were recognized along with climate change as the key driving factors for forest vegetation change. So, nigawas na po si land use conversion and population pressure. So, population pressure or increasing number of population. So, the more nga nagadaghan ang tao sa kalibutan, the more that we need or the more there is a demand for space. And since puno na ang city or puno na ta diri sa syudad, there is no other way to go but upwards or uplands. So didto gid ta padulong sa forest. That's why nga to mga forest gina-convert na into different purposes other than being a forest. So it was found that an increase in rainfall variability may cause a large-scale dieback or degradation of the Amazon rainforest. So imagine Amazon rainforest is the largest rainforest in the world. And an increase in rainfall may cause a large-scale dieback or a degradation of the Amazon rainforest. A study of the large-scale drying trend and tree abundance interactions found that 10% of the tree species are headed for extinction because of a 25-year decline in precipitation. So, 25-year na decline in precipitation may cause 10% of the tree species to be extinct. And we don't want that to happen. So, 10% is, siguro, if you think of it, it is a small number or a small portion of the overall total percentage of tree species in our tropical forest. But, dako na siya kaayo, no? Especially we don't know what will happen in the future. And since naa naman ta karon diri we have to do our best nga dili mo abot ani nga projection, no, nga ma-extinct na daw ang 10% sa ato ang mga tree species. Okay, next, changes in phenology. So what is phenology? It is the study of the periodic events in biological life cycles and how these are influenced by seasonal and interannual variations in climate as well as habitat factors. So in the simplest terms, it is the study that measures the timing of life cycle events in all living things. So there are very few studies of climate change impacts on tree phenology in all tropical regions. So the periodicity of rainfall and soil water availability regulates flowering phenology in South Asian forests. So of course, ang life cycle po sa ato ang mga living things nagadepende po na siya in many factors. So, including rainfall, including water availability, including soil availability, including the temperature, the humidity. So, daghan na siya og factors nga naga-affect sa life cycles ato ang mga living things. So, fruiting phenology of trees is also likely to be influenced by climate change in tropical deciduous forest. In semi-deciduous forest in Sri Lanka, this is an example, rainfall has been recognized as a key mechanism for Manilkara hexandra, whereas climatic variations such as drought or heavy rain were responsible for the abortion of flowers and young fruits. So, sa Sri Lanka daw, ang rainfall, one of the key mechanism for the growth of Manilkara hexandra. But because of climatic variations, such as drought and heavy rain, which is an effect of climate change, so ang iyahang flowers and young fruits were aborted. So there is a big impact of the climate change in every tree species. So observed climate in tropical Asia. Tropical Asia is highly vulnerable to climate change. So the observed climate trends and variability in tropical Asia are increasing air temperatures and greater changes in rainfall regimes. So increases in annual mean temperature in East and South Asia have been observed during the 20th century. So today, as of today, increasing ang ato ang mean temperature. So meaning nagkainit ang ato ang palibot. Temperature has been increasing at a rate of 0.14 degrees Celsius to 0.20 degrees Celsius per decade since the 1960s, coupled with a rising number of hot days and warm nights and a decrease in the number of cold days across Southeast Asia. So I can't imagine what life would be if dili ta magtinabangay today to mitigate climate change. So this may be a small increase in temperature, but if this goes on for the next couple of years, then this will be a big problem to us. Projected climate change in tropical Asia, or the estimated climate change in tropical Asia. The climate change projections suggest a significant acceleration of warming for tropical Asia for the 21st century. Summer precipitation is likely to increase in South Asia, and droughts associated with summer drying could result in regional vegetation die-offs. So summer precipitation. So, as you have observed, before, pag summer gani, init jud na siya. But right now, we can't predict. Usahay, pag summer diriya sa Philippines, usually, magbagyo. So, that's one of the effect of climate change. And because of that, it may hamper ang ato ang growth sa ato ang mga living things or growth sa ato ang plants. So there is a projected increase of 10 to 20% in the intensity of tropical storms, with an increase in sea surface temperature of 2 to 4 degrees Celsius relative to the current temperature in South Asia. 10 to 20% intensity of tropical storms. So naapa di ay ikakusog ang ato ang storms nga ma-experience. Okay? So potential risk for tropical Asian forest. In tropical Asia, climate change impacts on many plants and animal species is likely a result of the synergistic effects of climate change and habitat fragmentation. The rapid nature of projected climate change, coupled with the fragmented state of forest, may cause tropical forest ecosystems in Asia to a decrease in resilience and eventually drive the extinction of rare and endangered tree species. The composition and geographic distribution of forest ecosystems will change as the individual species respond to new climate conditions. Okay, because of fragmentation, or because of the degradation of our tropical forest, it may result to the extinction of rare and endangered tree species. And if ma-extinct na sila, the composition and geographic distribution of our forest ecosystems will change, of course, tungod kay mga wala naman tong previous nga mga tree species. And then it will change eventually because katong mga nabilin nga species, they will respond no to new climate conditions. So nature na sa ato ang forest, or nature na sa mga tree species nga mo respond, mo adapt sa ilahang palibot. Now if magpadayon ang climate change, or if magpadayon ang kainit sa kalibutan, they have no choice but to adapt. But some trees will not survive. No, dili tanan maka-adapt. Same with us humans, dili tanan maka-adapt sa effects sa climate change. So this is a risk for tropical Asian forest. So risgo siya sa tropical Asian forest kung magpadayon gihapon nga dili mautro or maskin ma-lessen man lang ang effects sa climate change. So remnant forest or remaining forest may degrade and fragment in response to climate change and other human pressures, and species that cannot adapt fast enough may become extinct. So this is what I'm saying. So naagi po yung mga species, flora and fauna species that cannot adapt. And what will happen to them if they cannot adapt? Diba? Of course, they will die and eventually become extinct. Although projected changes in climate are expected to modify the vegetation distribution across the region, the responses will be slowed by limiting factors such as seed dispersal, competition from established plants, rates of soil development, and habitat fragmentation. So, an example, for instance, the distributions of major timber trees across the deciduous, evergreen, and semi-evergreen forests of South and Southeast Asia are likely to change due to the increasing rainfall, temperature, and climate extreme events. So more frequent extreme events such as storms, floods, interannual and decadal climate variations may promote plant disease and pest outbreaks in the fragmented forest. So droughts combined with deforestation will increase fire danger for tropical Asian forest. So drought na gani, init na gani, tapos wala pa gyud trees or gipang putol pa gyud ang trees, it is more vulnerable to fires or forest fires. While increased rainfall runoff in open forest areas will drive topsoil erosion and leaching, resulting in a net decrease in growth rate, biomass, and diversity of forest plant species. So in tropical Asia, variation in rainfall intensity, temperatures, and evapotranspiration may lead to an increase in the length of periods between mass flowering and fruiting events of tree species. This may impact the tree phenology, particularly irregular flowering and fruiting. So, kuan ni siya, ang effects sa climate change is dili siya mo effect sa isa lang ka species. So, damay-damay ang effect sa climate change. And if we don't start now, kaning mga projected impacts of climate change in our tropical forest will have a greater possibility to happen. Okay, so I hope you understand this lesson. That would be all, and thank you.